What did Patty Duke do after the movie ended? The Oscar-winning actress had a complicated life that was full of love, fame, mental health problems, and a terrible death. Her story is both moving and sad, from her abandoned home in Idaho to the family she loved and the memory she left behind. Who was there for her in her last days? What happened to the money she made working in Hollywood all her life? Let's read the last part of Patty Duke's story. People all over the world said goodbye to a famous person in the entertainment business on March 29, 2016, when Patty Duke died in Curleen, Idaho. She was 69 years old. Because her gut burst, she got sepsis, which became very sick very quickly and took her life way too soon. Duke was known for her exceptional ability, emotional depth, and later in life, her brave work to raise awareness about mental health. Her death marked the end of an era but also the start of a legacy that runs deep in both film and humanitarian work. Actor Sean Aston, who played her mother, did something very special to honor her memory and the causes she cared about after she died. He is known for his parts in The Goonies and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. People were asked to help the Patty Duke Mental Health Initiative, a foundation whose goals are to raise awareness, support education, and make it easier for people to get mental health services. The creation of this project not only honored Duke's hard work in the field, but it also made her effect last beyond her lifetime by using her own struggles to inspire and help others. Patty Duke had always been open about the mental health problems she was having. After years of mental turmoil and wrong diagnoses, she was finally given a bipolar disorder diagnosis in 1982. She was one of the first famous people to talk about her condition in public. At a time when mental illness was still looked down upon, Duke's openness and support were groundbreaking. Being honest about her mental illness helped make conversations about it more open, and she used her fame to teach others and encourage acceptance and understanding. Her body was burned, and her ashes were scattered at Coeur d'Alene's Forest Cemetery, calm and peaceful place in the town in Idaho, where she had lived for many years. The cemetery, which is surrounded by beautiful nature, is a perfect place for a woman to rest, who spent most of her life in the spotlight, but seemed to find peace. When she was away from Hollywood, Patty Duke had a career that lasted more than 50 years, and her net worth was believed to be around $10 million at the time of her death. Duke had an amazing resume, with roles like Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker, when she was 16 years old, that won her an Academy Award, roles on TV that won her Emmys, and success as an author and activist. She also had a life with meaning and impact. Patty Duke's real estate is one of her most valuable possessions. Academy Award-winning actress Patty Duke lived in a beautiful colonial-style house high above the city of Los Angeles from 1966 to 1970, when she was married to TV director Harry Falk. It is at 1600 Summit Ridge Drive in the fancy Beverly Hills. The estate was more than just a house. It was a safe place for Duke to be herself and a sign of her progress during one of the most difficult and changing times in her life. As the homes were built on top of a mountain, they had unbeatable views of all of Los Angeles, from the city's skyline to the Pacific Ocean in the distance. The land was tucked away in the hills and surrounded by nature. The main house was very fancy and had 9 large rooms. The living and dining rooms were very big, as were the bedrooms and the sun-drenched kitchen. The house had many classic colonial features. Inside, there were bay windows that let in warm California sunshine, several fancy fireplaces that added warmth and atmosphere, and fine details that showed Duke's changing tastes and his desire for a home that felt both grand and cozy. Also in the land were plenty of room to relax and have fun. With a 12-car parking lot and a 4-car garage, it's clear that the house was built to be used in real life and host important events. Duke could hang out with friends and people in the same business, but he could also go there to get away from the stress of fame. Even though her job was stressful and her personal life was unstable, including her private fight with mental illness. At the time, This home was a brief oasis of comfort and stability. In her book, Call Me Anna, which came out in 1987, Patty Duke wrote with affection about her time at the Summit Ridge Drive house, calling it a beloved home. Her words showed how much she loved the house and hinted at how it helped her feel stable during years of mental turmoil. Although she and Falk got a divorce in 1970, the house they shared was still one of her favorite memories of that time. In her life, this house is connected to an interesting side story in the history of Hollywood. Duke let actress Sharon Tate and her husband, director Roman Polanski, live in the house for a while. The couple, who are both rising stars, was said to be enchanted by the house and even thought about buying it. But in the end, they decided to settle at 10,050 Cello Drive, a choice that would become tragically famous because of what happened in August 1969. In 1988, Patty Duke and her fourth husband, Michael Pierce, a former Army drill sergeant who became a firefighter, bought a quiet summer home near Harrison, Idaho. They did this to get away from the bright lights of Hollywood and enjoy some peace and quiet. The three-story home quickly became a beloved getaway because it was set on a huge, private 40-acre lot with a view of the clear waters of Lake Curden. Duke had been in the public eye for a lot of her life, so the Idaho property wasn't just a vacation home for her. It was a highly personal haven where she could find peace, think, and live a slower, more grounded life. The couple wanted to get away from the busy life in Hollywood, and their home was the perfect place to do that. The people who lived there had wide views of the lake and the nearby wilderness. It was a stark and welcome change from the cityscapes and studio lots Duke had known since he was a child. The land gave her a sense of stability that she had been looking for a long time, away from the paparazzi, her busy schedule, and the ups and downs of fame. This house was a big step forward for the couple. They bought their first home in Idaho, which would become their permanent home and a place where Duke found both peace and community. The house quickly became an important part of their family life. It was a place to celebrate, rest, and get back in touch with family and friends, including Duke's children. The Idaho wilderness helped Duke live a simpler, more real life, one in which she could be a wife, mother, and advocate, in addition to being an artist. The peaceful dream was hit hard, though, when tragedy struck in the form of a house fire in February 1996. It turned out that the problem was caused by a refrigerator motor that got too hot. An everyday home appliance went horribly wrong. The fire spread quickly through the house, and by the time it was put out, the whole building was gone. It was a terrible loss. Besides destroying the building itself, the fire also destroyed valuable, personal items, family heirlooms that had been passed down through generations, and highly personal mementos that showed Duke's life's journey. Even more sad was the fact that the fire destroyed some of her professional honors, such as acting awards that were important to her long and successful career. Even though awards are just signs, they reminded her of all the hard work, desire, and determination she put in over many years. They also reminded her of her successes and failures. Even though the fire caused a lot of damage, Duke and Pierce didn't let it define their Idaho chapter. Over time, they put their lives back together and stayed in the area, renewing their ties to the land and the people who lived there. Duke's connection to Idaho grew stronger after the tragedy. It became more than just a place to hide. It became his home. The sad loss of the house and all of its things made me realize how fragile things are and how unpredictable life is. But it also showed how strong Duke's spirit was. She had been through a lot in her life, from a traumatic youth and mental health problems to the intense attention of being famous. She came out of each one with ease and strength. The fire at Harrison was another part of her story. It was a sad moment that was followed by a steady, quiet recovery. Patty Duke and her husband, Michael Pierce, made a big move in 2003 that made their place in the quiet town of Coeur d'Alene more secure. They had just sold their beloved ranch in Harrison, Idaho. The couple bought a nearly 3,000-square-foot, 5-bedroom house in the quiet Best Hills Meadows neighborhood. It was in a beautiful area that gave them the privacy and peace they loved in Idaho. This new house would become their main home and stay that way until Duke died in 2016. The Best Hills Meadows house was a great place for Duke and Pierce to get away from it all. It had more space than their old ranch and let them keep living a quieter, more private life away from the spotlight. The house was new and had a lot of space, but it still had the warm, welcoming feel that the couple had been looking for in their past homes. The 5 beds made it easy for Duke to host her children and other loved ones who came to visit. There was plenty of space for guests, family, and friends. Even though she had a lot of success in Hollywood, she found peace in this quiet, beautiful neighborhood. The house was built with an open floor plan so that the large living rooms blended in with the natural surroundings. Large windows let in a lot of light and made the views of the mountains and peaceful scenery of North Idaho even more beautiful. The property's setting not only had beautiful views, but it also gave Duke the peace and quiet that she was looking for as she got older and wanted to get away from the stress and chaos of her early years in Hollywood. Following many years of fame, Duke had always wanted a quiet, normal life. So this house was very important to him. It was a lot like her life. She went from being a young starlet fighting her own problems to an older woman who found stability, happiness, and purpose. It was here that she could read, cook, and spend time with her family without having to worry about being watched all the time. Duke had also become involved in the community and was working to bring attention to mental health issues, which was a cause she had taken on after her public fight with bipolar disorder. The home in Curden gave her the room to pursue these interests, letting her make a difference in other people's lives while living in a calm and supportive space. Duke's marriage to Pierce, whom she loved very much, stayed the most important thing in her life at Best Hills Meadows. They had a deep bond, and Pierce, who used to be a firefighter and drill sergeant and is now retired, was known for always being there for Duke while they were together. Their relationship was stable, with Pierce giving Duke a base of love and care that helped him grow. It became clear that they were a couple because of their home in Coeur d'Alene. It was a place where they could get old together, close to nature and the easy things in life. They continued to enjoy the peace and quiet of their Courine home as the years went by. Even though it wasn't always easy, Duke's health started to get worse in the years before she died in 2016, so she stressed out more about staying healthy. Even though she was having health problems, her relationship with Pierce stayed strong, and the two of them continued to enjoy the peaceful, happy life they had built in Idaho. After Patty Duke died on March 29, 2016, her home in Best Hills Meadows became a sign of her last years. It was there that she had found peace after a difficult career. Later that year, the house was put on the market, which marked the end of an era. It was 2009 when Patty Duke was back in the news. This time she was on stage as Madame Morble in the acclaimed San Francisco production of Wicked, the Broadway hit show that people all over the world couldn't get enough of. Duke temporarily lived in the beautiful and famous Russian Hill neighborhood while she was in the city for this show. This area would have a deep personal meaning for her. The steep streets, beautiful views of the Golden Gate Bridge, and charming old buildings made the neighborhood a home away from home for the experienced actress while she worked on the show. The house was only there for a short time, but her time in Russian Hill was important for a lot more than just being able to rest between shows. The neighborhood had a special meaning for Duke because it was close to where the pilot episode of the groundbreaking TV show that made her famous, The Patty Duke Show, had been shot many years before. Duke had a lot of memories coming back to the place where the show was filmed. It reminded her of the show that made her famous and changed the course of her career forever. The Patty Duke Show, which ran from 1963 to 1966, was a groundbreaking show that brought Duke her first big fame in the TV business. The show followed the adventures of Patty Lane, a teenage girl, and her identical cousin Kathy, played by Duke. They had to deal with the problems of being a teenager and family life. The show was unique for its time, especially since Duke played two different characters, and it was one of the first times an actress played two different characters in the same series. A big win that cemented her place as one of the most skilled young stars of her time and set her on the path to a long and varied career in movies and TV shows. Even though the Patty Duke Show was filmed in Hollywood, the pilot episode was shot in San Francisco, which made Duke love that city very much. The Russian Hill filming spot was an important part of the show's early history. When Duke rented a house in 2009 close to the location where it all began, it made her feel like she had come full circle. Because it was quiet there, she could think about how far she had come since the beginning of her fame. It was a chance to take a moment to celebrate both the professional and personal growth that had happened in the years since the first episode of the show aired. Duke gave her show in San Francisco the same passion and dedication that had made her career famous. It wasn't easy to play Madame Morble in Wicked. Morble is a high-ranking official at Shiz University, and one of the main bad guys in the story. He is a complicated and somewhat dark character. Duke, who is known for having a lot of emotional depth and being able to play many different types of people, gave the part a special weight. People were excited to see the experienced actress play this important role, which added another story to her already long career. Patty Duke's personal life was just as complicated and full of different things as her acting job. She was married 4 times and had 3 children. Each marriage and relationship changed her in a way that she will never forget. Even when she was young, Duke was interested in spirituality. Her study of different religions was an important part of her life and showed how she was looking for understanding, peace, and purpose, beyond the usual fame and wealth. Duke was a devoted Catholic when she was young, and she wanted to become a nun. Having a strong faith and spiritual connection was a big part of her early life and gave her a sense of meaning and belonging. Her relationship with religion changed, though, as her work took off and her personal life became more complicated. In 1995, Duke wrote about her spiritual journey and said that she thought religion wasn't limited to one way or practice. I don't think she meant to say that to be religious. You have to quote Moses, Jesus, or Buddha, or sing like Tibetan monks. That is not the way of Christ. This point of view came from her many spiritual experiences, such as her time as a Christian Scientist and her study of Buddhism. She was so interested in spiritual and intellectual issues that there was a time when she really thought about becoming Jewish. Duke found comfort in a wider range of spiritual paths as she got older. She usually went to Unity Church because it was a positive and welcoming place to be spiritual. She also kept going to Catholic Mass every once in a while, partly because she missed the traditions of her childhood. She said that the sounds and smells of the Catholic Church made her feel like she was back in the past and in touch with the child inside her who had dreamed of a life of religious dedication. Duke's search for greater meaning beyond the labels of any one faith was shown by the fact that he was open to different belief systems and did spiritual practices. Along with Duke's spiritual explorations, she faced problems in her daily life, especially in her relationships. In 1965, when she was 18, she got married for the first time to TV director Harry Falk. Falk was 13 years older than her, and their relationship started out well but quickly became troubled. Duke had a hard time with the stresses of fame and the ups and downs in her personal life when she was young and in the public eye. During her marriage to Falk, she had severe mood swings, drank a lot, and struggled with an eating problem, which turned into anorexia. She also had problems with her mental health, including several pill overdoses that showed how badly she was feeling emotionally. Their split in 1969, which was a turning point in Duke's life, was caused by the stresses of their marriage and her personal problems. Early in 1970, Patty Duke's personal life became very public and unstable when she started dating 3 men at the same time. This set off a web of relationships that would change her life in ways she could not have imagined. Duke had been famous and under a lot of pressure for years, which made her emotional problems and manic episodes worse. When she was only 23, she went through a chaotic time with many relationships, public attention, and a quick marriage that ended in heartache and confusion. The guys in this complicated love triangle, or maybe a better word would be love square, were Desi Arnaz, Jr. Mark Tell, John Aston, and Michael Tell. Arnaz, who was 17 years old and the son of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, was probably the most well-known of the three. A lot of news outlets talked about Duke and Arnaz's relationship. The public was interested because both of them were young, and Arnaz was related to his mother, the beloved I Love Lucy star. It wasn't just the press, though, that helped make their relationship so public. Lucille Ball, Arnaz's strict mother, said she strongly didn't like the relationship, which caused stress that sparked the media's interest. It's possible that Ball's opposition to the relationship led to its early end. Duke and Arnaz broke up in the spring of 1970, but their short and troubled relationship would stay an important part of Duke's life. Duke started dating two other men, actor John Aston, 16 years older than her, and rock music producer Michael Tell, while her breakup with Arnaz was still fresh in her mind. People knew Aston for his part as Gomez Addams on the popular TV show The Addams Family. At the time, his relationship with Duke was one of the more stable and less publicized ones. However, the most important Duke's relationships during this time would have an effect on her friendship with Tell. Duke found out she was pregnant in June 1970. This news caused her to act in a number of bold and rash ways. Duke chose to marry Michael Tell on June 26, 1970, when she was going through what she later called a crazy phase, so she could give her child a name. Duke made hasty plans to marry Tell because he was feeling down, and not because he had a strong link to him. They got married on a whim instead of a clear promise, and it only lasted 13 days before they got divorced on July 9, 1970. Looking back, Duke's short-lived relationship with Tell seemed almost unbelievable, which shows how upset he was emotionally at the time. Duke later wrote in her book from 1987 that she had married Tell because she thought it was necessary to make her pregnancy legal. She also made it clear that they never got married. Her son, Sean Aston, who was born on February 25, 1971, was not Michael Tell's biological son. She also made it clear he was Desi Arnaz Jr.'s kid, whom she thought of as her real partner while she was pregnant. This claim was at the heart of how Duke told her life story and how the public understood her relationships. But later, new information would come out that made her claims look less likely. In 1994, tests on biological material showed that Michael Tell, not Desi Arnaz Jr., was, in fact, Sean Aston's real father. Duke was shocked by this news, which showed that she had made a big mistake in her earlier stories. Scientific proof contradicted her repeated claims in interviews and her autobiography that Arnaz was Sean's biological father. This made Duke face the difficult and painful truth about her son's father. This news made Duke's personal history and connection with her son even more complicated than they were before. Patty Duke's personal life changed a lot over the years. She got married, had kids, and had times when she really grew as a person. One of the most important times in her life was when she was dating and married John Aston in 1972. Their marriage was a new start in both her personal and professional lives, since it brought two people together and allowed them to work together, creatively. Duke married John Aston on August 5, 1972. Aston is an actor who is best known for playing Gomez Addams on The Addams Family. Once Duke got married, her life became stable and felt like a family, especially after the unstable relationships she had before. Their bond grew stronger when Aston adopted Duke's son, Shah Aston, from her short marriage to Michael Tell. Marriage. Sean was officially adopted by Aston. Duke had always thought of Sean as her real son. This was a big step in making their new family stronger. Duke and Aston also had a biological son together. His name was Mackenzie Aston, and he too would become an actress like his parents. Duke loved having a bigger family as a mother, but the difficulties of mixed-race relationships, such as adopting Aston's three other boys from a previous marriage, made their home life even more complicated. Duke continued to work as an actress, while she was married to Aston. In her working life, she took her husband's name and became known as Patty Duke Aston. This showed that they were together in life and in their work life. During this time, the couple worked together a lot. Aston was often the director and producer, and Duke contributed her skills to many projects. Even though they were having success outside of work and working together personally, Duke's health would take a big turn during these years. In the middle of the 1970s, Duke had a hysterectomy, which was hard on her both mentally and physically, and made things harder for her as a mother and wife. Duke was deeply affected by not being able to have more biological children, but she finally came to terms with her choice and embraced her role as a mother to her growing family. Some parts of their friendship were not as easy, though. In 1998, Duke had to make the tough choice to allow the adoption of Aston's 3 older boys from a previous marriage to be reversed. Duke, who was known to care deeply about her family, had a lot to think about and change when she made this choice, even though it seemed like a friendly one. Even though Duke agreed to the adoption being reversed, it marked the end of an era in her life and showed how complicated family relationships can be, as well as how her own journey is always changing. Duke and Aston got a divorce in 1985, which was another big change in her life. But Duke's love life was still going strong. Michael Pierce was a drill master and consultant that she met while working on the production of A Time to Triumph. They got married in 1986. Pierce was more than just Duke's husband. He was always there for him. Over the years, he became her rock and support system. They moved to Hayden, Idaho together. Duke liked living in the Pacific Northwest because it was quieter and more country there. Their love for each other got stronger over time, and in 1988, they adopted a son named Kevin. Duke and Pierce took Kevin in and raised him as their own. He became an important part of their family life. Duke loved being Pierce's stepmother to his 2 girls, Rylene and Charlene, while she was married to Pierce. She was an excited and loving stepmother, and she took her job very seriously. As Pierce's daughters joined the mixed family, she helped and cared for them. Duke felt stable during this time because she had made a deep bond with Pierce that would last. She was married to him for 30 years, until she died in 2016. It was the longest and most stable relationship she had ever been in. Duke's bond with her grandkids grew as her family did. Duke is very happy to have 3 granddaughters, Alexandra, Elizabeth, and Isabella. They were all born to her son, Shaw. Duke was very proud of these girls, who were the daughters of Shaw and his wife, actor Christine Harold. They brought her a lot of happiness. Her bond with her granddaughters showed how she had grown as a mother and woman. They were a second generation of love and support that she had built up over the years. What do you think about Duke? Please, tell us what you think in the box below. We hope this video was helpful for you. Kindly click like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Glad you watched, and see you in the next film. Thank you.